It's fascinating too, what you mentioned about the Get Back film, because I
Yeah.
think it was, that gives me a whole new appreciation. I watched the whole thing and I think it was more so sold as, like in layman's terms, sort of, we found all this great old footage of the Beatles. That's sort of how it was sold from Disney. But
Yeah.
to think that it was generated in such a way and there was so many fine points, even just to get this footage and audio out there, is pretty mind blowing to think of.
You have to understand that when the original movie was put out, so again, it was filmed in 69. It was shelved for a while, and then at that, because they kind of were estranged from George Martin, and that's why they were a
Mm,
bit rudderless. Paul was kind of leading, but after they finished that record and it hadn't come out yet, and they went back to George Martin and said, look, and they knew where they were breaking up. In the film, you can see the fissures, you can see the cracks
mhm.
very visibly. So they went to George Martin and said, we want to record one more record. And George very famously said, only if you let me produce it like we used to. Meaning,
Mm.
hey, I'm in control here. Let's do this. Let's make a great record. And they made Abbey Road,
Wow.
frickin' Abbey Road. So Let It Be didn't come out until after Abbey Road. But when the film was released, they released it into the theaters. I'm not sure if it was 70 or 71. And I finally saw it in the mid 70s, packaged with Help and Hard Day's Night in a theater in Evansville, Indiana, where I grew up. It was really dark and really depressing. The original cut of the film
Mm.
really kind of chose most of the arguments and the unhappiness. And the film was dingy and it just looked horrible. The audio was out of sync with the video, which is very
Mm.
disconcerting for anybody, but especially for musicians. And just the narrative that the original director decided to edit. So what Peter Jackson did, not only did he was able to use the AI for the audio to improve that, but the video he'd already used on a World War One documentary. I forget the name. I'm so sorry. But they shall not remain nameless or something.
Mhm.
But he'd already used this technology to be able to enhance and improve aged, dingy film. So that's why the Get Back film looks like it had been shot, a year ago. It just had this vibrant thing. You really see the colors, and
Yeah.
there was so much joy that all this film that ended up on the cutting room floor, not even considered. There was so much love and joy between them, even though they were trying to handle the pressure of being the Beatles. They were growing up.
Mhm.
They were, everybody was getting married and leading their own lives. They were just fed up with the whole thing, and it's understandable. But within that, there's still these four guys that shared all this stuff, and so many great moments of levity and joy and productivity. And when you see Paul sit there and write "Get Back" out of thin air on his bass, it's just, things like that.
Unbelievable.
Or John and Paul in the break room discussing, they really hurt George, man. They really hurt him, and he left the band. It's like John's exact quote was like, he had a deep wound, and we just made it worse, and we didn't give him a band-aid.
Mm.
That's
Right.
a deep thing,
That's deep.
and because it was off camera, they were speaking differently. They
Yeah.
weren't they weren't on. They were really aware of their buddy that was hurting, and it was deep. There were several times where I had to turn it off because I was overwhelmed with emotion. That was one of
For
those
sure.
moments. Or the next day when it's just Paul and Ringo showing up to the studio, and George has quit, John's not showing up, and Paul says something like, "Then there were two."
Right. And he's
And
crying.
the camera stays on him, and he's tearing up, and you've never seen that emotion from Paul McCartney. He always keeps that stiff upper lip, that British. All
Yeah.
right, all right, lads, let's go. Much to his credit, but man, when you saw that vulnerability, and boy, it's heavy. I'm welling up now just because
Yeah.
what a perspective, and again, what a gift, because Peter Jackson gets it. I
Mhm.
think, I don't know if he's the same age as I, but I suspect that he's as big a geek as I am to this point. But what he's been able to do with his toolbox and get this material to us fans, he knew that these were things that this would mean a lot.
Yeah. It would go far for a lot of people, right?
Oh my
And he,
God.
he could feel that
Yeah.
too.
Even John, even Ringo and Paul, when they saw the new footage, they were like, "Oh my God!" I
Yeah.
bought it. I bought into the whole thing that we hated each other because they'd seen the film. They have their, some of those memories would have stood out. But you
Hmm.
see all the joy and so much beauty that it just reminded them, fuck,
Yeah.
we really loved each other, despite legal and just insane the world at their doorstep, 24/7.
Yeah.
Unimaginable the pressure of what they had to have been going through. They were just these guys that wanted to make some music.